Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to SI Now. Happy Friday. It is December 9th, and I'm Maggie Gray. We learned a lot more about the Oakland Raiders Thursday night. The team that looked like it would be the AFC favorites turned in one of their worst performances of the season. For more on that and a look ahead to the rest of Week 14, here are Super Bowl champion Chris Canty and our own Ryan Aselta. Hey, guys.
All right, it's time to get you ready for a big weekend of football in the NFL. Ryan Aselta alongside Super Bowl champion Chris Canty, and we are going 4 downs with Mr. Canty as Week 14 in the NFL. Chris got underway last night out in Kansas City, and it wasn't pretty, but Kansas City holds on to beat the Raiders 21-13 as the Chiefs now sit atop the AFC West after sweeping the series this season. And Chris, when you look at this Chiefs team, what impressed you most last night about them?
Well, it's a veteran team that understands what December football in the National Football League is all about. Even though Tyreek Hill had the mistake early in the game with the muff pump, he was able to come back with a punt return of his own for a touchdown, able to have a receiving touchdown, make those impact plays. But you saw even when they had the turnovers to face the adversity early in the second half, they still found a way to hold on to the lead. And you got to tip your cap to Andy Reid and his staff for really finding a game plan, finding a way to neutralize that explosive Oakland Raiders offense.
Any concerns with what you saw from the Raiders? Obviously, the temperature seemed to be an issue with Derek Carr. His pinky still might have been an issue. But anything concerning to you going forward with this team?
No, not really. I think this is a young football team that just doesn't understand what playing meaningful games in December is all about. And so I think the experience would be good for them. So I think moving forward, I think this team will continue to improve, especially with the experience, understanding what it's like playing in these tough, hard-fought football games late in the season.
All right, let's move on to second down. An interesting story from Jets wide receiver Brandon Marshall. The Jets wideout claims he doesn't remember a good part of one of the most productive games of his career. That was a 3-touchdown performance against the Niners back in 2014. The reason? He had taken painkillers before the game. Now, Chris, pain management is a hot-button topic in the NFL right now. How does Marshall's story reflect on the league, especially as it faces a lawsuit over painkillers and RICO concealment?
The NFL has to find a way to deal with the opioid issue in terms of addiction, in terms of alternative medicines. They've got to look at other options for the long-term interests of the individual players. And I think right now they're turning a blind eye to it. It's something that they need to address. They need to involve more people. They need to get other perspectives, and they need to do more research. Now, I understand this is a slow-moving process, but during the course of this process, they've got to understand that players' livelihoods and physical health are in jeopardy. So they have to move as quickly and diligently as they can in order to find an alternative, because a lot of guys are dealing with the issues of addictions because of opioid prescriptions in order to do their jobs.
How prevalent is the opioid, the painkiller usage, and how much are teams really kind of pushing you in that direction to use it?
Well, I think everybody has a heightened level of awareness now, so I don't know if pushing is the right word, but certainly there's pressure when you consider that you have a job to do and you're being compensated to do it. When you're not available to do it, your job security then becomes in question. So there's always somebody else that wants to take your job, and so players kind of put that pressure on themselves to get back out there on the field. I think that players are pushing themselves and teams are allowing the players to have what they need in the efforts of pain management in order to get back on the field.
All right, third down. One of these 500 teams will control the AFC South. Someone has to, right? The showdown, the Colts and the Texans square off this weekend. The winner will find itself sitting in first place in that AFC South. Chris, both teams just 500 on the year, 6-6. Which team emerges from this game on Sunday sitting atop the division?
Well, I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts, and it's a large part with the performance that they had against the New York Jets on Monday night. 40 rushing attempts for nearly 140 yards. Really impressed with how they were able to control time of possession, holding the ball for over 38 minutes against the New York Jets, which is a pretty stout defensive front. Again, we talk about how football changes in December, more emphasis on the running game. So I think if the Colts stick with that, they'll be successful.
All right, let's move on to fourth down. Can the Giants stop the Cowboys for a second time? Dallas goes for its 12th consecutive win Sunday night at MetLife Stadium. Their last and only loss of the season came at the hands of the Giants back on opening night. Chris, how different, though, are these two teams from that game back in early September when the Giants went into Dallas and won the season opener.
Very, very different, very different. That was Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. That was their first game in the National Football League in the regular season. Those guys have matured. They continue to get better over the course of weeks because they're seeing more football. When you're seeing the different defense they're throwing at them, they're seeing different game plans, and they're still finding a way to be successful. In order to be able to win against a team like this, you're going to have to be able to move the ball, and I'm not sure the Giants can manufacture any kind of offense.
Jerry Jones says he's not planning on giving a guy like Ezekiel Elliott any time off. What do you think of that strategy?
I think that's the right move, especially where this team sits right now. They're probably going to get a bye week at some point. They've already clinched a playoff spot. So you want to keep that momentum going. You want to keep that chemistry going. You don't want to interrupt that. And so I think that that's where Jerry Jones is coming from, Jason Garrett and that coaching staff. They want to keep the execution level high. They want to keep the sense of urgency high around the building. They don't want the team to relax. And I think that's the right mentality when you're going into playoff football.
Might not bad idea to get Tony Romo a couple snaps down the stretch.
Oh, that's just going to create.
Hey.
If he comes in and plays well, then you're going to have another quarterback controversy.
No. I'm just saying.
I don't think this team needs.
If Dak gets hurt down the stretch and Romo hasn't played in 2 months, that's a big problem.
If anybody starting quarterback gets hurt at this time of year, it's a big problem.
Fair enough. All right. In a minute, Maggie's going to be joined by Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue cover model Ashley Graham. But right now, Michael Beller tells you who to start and who to sit as you get your fantasy roster ready for the weekend.
The fantasy playoffs have arrived, meaning every start-sit we do the rest of the way will be the most important of the season. It's exciting times in the fantasy world, with every start-sit decision potentially the one that will send you to the next round or end your season. We're here to help make the former happen. Get TYROD Taylor in your lineup. The Bills quarterback has at least 6.8 rushing points in 7 games this season, including 6 of the last 7. It's awfully hard for him to fall short of expectations when he's doing that much damage with his legs. In 12 career games with both Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods healthy, he has completed 63% of his passes for 8.25 YPA and 21 touchdowns against just 5 picks. He's an easy QB1 this week. Dak Prescott has been ruthlessly efficient this season, but the expected script between the Cowboys and Giants this week does not bode well for the rookie. He should be on your bench. It'd be silly to expect a disaster from Prescott after everything he has done this year, but his ceiling is rather low going up against the stout Giants defense, especially with Ezekiel Elliott likely to hog 25 or more carries. Forget your impressions of Jonathan Stewart's game last week. That he managed 50 yards on 11 carries against the Seahawks in a game the Panthers lost 40-7 is actually quite impressive. He gets a completely different set of circumstances this week with the Panthers hosting the Chargers. They've allowed the 8th most points to running backs on the year, and the Panthers are small favorites in a game with a total of 48 points. You can pencil Stewart in for easy top 20 production at the position this week. Terrence West was back in command of the Baltimore backfield last week, totaling 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. It would be foolish to dismiss him out of hand, but he's a sit for Week 14. Nothing about the expected game flow between the Ravens and Patriots suggests a big game for West. The Patriots are favored by a touchdown, and the over-under is an average 45.5 points. He's no more than a low-end flex play. In that same game, Malcolm Mitchell is a much better play for fantasy owners. The Patriots schemed him open repeatedly last week, getting him 10 targets. He caught 8 of those for 82 yards and is going to be a key piece for the offense in its post-Rob Gronkowski world. If you believe in the Pats' offense this week, you should believe strongly in Mitchell, especially when you consider how good the Ravens have been against the run this year. Allen Robinson, Blake Bortles, and interim offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett met this week to make sure they were all on the same page. In Week 14, that pretty much sums up Robinson's season individually and that of the Jacksonville offense as a whole. There's no possible way to trust Bortles, and by extension Robinson, in a matchup with the Vikings. LADARIUS Green is set to take a star turn in the fantasy playoffs and must be in lineups this week. We always knew he had this ability in him, so it was great to finally see it click last week when he caught 6 passes for 110 yards and a touchdown in the Steelers' win over the Giants. Had he been playing all year, this would be as obvious as starting Travis Kelce or Jimmy Graham. Don't think twice about starting Green this week and every week for the rest of the season. CJ FIEDOROWICZ will likely get plenty of targets on Sunday, but he's still a sit. He has had more than 50 yards in just 3 games this season, making him largely a touchdown or bust player. It's hard to have confidence in such a player when he's tied to a Houston offense that ranks 28th in points scored. Finally, let's turn to the Lions defense on the defense stream. There's nothing bad about welcoming Matt Barkley to Detroit, notably when his top two receivers are Josh Bellamy and Cameron Meredith. Jordan Howard is the only weapon on the Bears the Lions have to worry about, and even if he has a strong game, they're going to force Barkley into multiple mistakes. That'll do it for the Week 14 edition of Stardom or Sit 'em. I'll see you all next week for more waiver wire advice. Until then, this is Michael Beller wishing you good luck this weekend.
My next guest graced the cover of the most recent Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Ashley Graham is here, and now one of the newest judges for America's Next Top Model, which is coming back on VH1, so congratulations. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but this has been a major year for you. Aside from the Sports Illustrated cover and some of the other photo shoots, what's been the most memorable thing to happen recently?
Well, being told that I'm not a cover girl and that I never will be. I mean, I have now, I think my agent added it up. I've been on 15 covers now in the last few years, and it's been amazing. But I have to give a lot of credit to Sports Illustrated. They took a chance and put a girl like me on the cover and said that beauty comes in all shapes and sizes.
It's amazing, and that's such a stunning cover.
Thank you.
You know a little something, obviously, about being on the cover of a magazine. If Sports Illustrated was going to go male version of the swimsuit model, athletes only, who do you think should get the cover?
That's a really good question.
I mean, you have a lot of options, like the Tom Brady's, the Derek Jeters, who's retired now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is too hard. Give me some options.
Well, I just gave you my two.
You would do Derek Jeter.
I would probably do actually Tom Brady.
Oh, Tom Brady.
Yeah.
He is a stud. He's a stud.
He's classic. He's like Clooney.
Yeah, there we go. There's your guy.
Okay, so along with your cover, Ronda Rousey was also on the cover.
Yes.
And you see women like Ronda and like Serena Williams. They're really breaking the mold on what it means to be beautiful and strong. Do you find that the message that you're sending is really similar to the one that they're preaching as well?
Yeah, 100%. I think that where fashion and sports kind of connect is a lot to do with what Sports Illustrated does. And at the end of the day, what women in general are doing is sharing a message of strength, encouragement amongst each other. Ronda was so incredibly sweet, took me under her wing, and we chatted so much about our photo shoots and what she's doing and how she got to where she is in her brand. And she's a really great woman.
And she's back in the Octagon December 30th, which is so exciting. In your opinion, are there still stereotypes of what a model should look like in 2016?
100%. I think that there will always be a stereotype of what somebody thinks of you, and when you say you're a model, how you should look, act, or even deliver the way that you are. But at the end of the day, there's women that have to stand up for what they believe in is beautiful, and that's why I'm here. That's why I call myself a body activist. At the end of the day, the average size American woman is a 16, and she needs to be represented.
How far away are we from it no longer being that stereotype that you have to be rail thin to be a model?
Well, I think that we have already figured out that you don't have to be real thin to be a model. I think now we just have to get rid of labels. I think that there's a lot of divisiveness within categorizing women because of the number inside of their pants. And I think that once we get past that, and once we stop looking at people and claiming if they're healthy or unhealthy just by how they look on the outside, then we've taken even a bigger leap.
When you go and speak to young girls, even young boys for that matter, I mean anybody, about with your body activism, what's the message that you want to get across to them, especially at a young age?
You know, at a young age, I really want young girls to understand that just if you don't like yourself in this moment, that's okay, but learn to love yourself as you grow older, because your parents have taught you so much about who you are, but it's really about who you say you are to yourself. And I talk about my struggles with who I am and who I was, and cellulite and back fat and actually having a role model growing up. I never actually had someone that looked like me that was in the media, and now I'm telling girls, look, my thighs rub every time I walk, and it's okay. So I really just want them to be comfortable in their skin.
That's great, and I think a little honesty can go a long way with everyone. Okay, you are a judge on the newest season of America's Next Top Model. It is back. Now, you've been judged fairly unfairly for most of your life. Will that make you, your professional life, will that make you more lenient and perhaps empathetic towards what the models are going through?
You know what I realized about myself is that I have this big sister vibe about me, and I want to take them all under my wing, but I am not a yes girl. And meaning I am not going to just say, you're the best, you can do this. No, I've been given a lot of criticism. I've been told, no, 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 and you can't and you never will. I've been told I'm, too fat for so many different things. But at the end of the day, the people who told me, oh, you have to be better at this because, or you're not going to be in this magazine because you have to be, you're not cool enough or whatever. Those are the types of people and the criticism that I got that made me better. And if I wouldn't have gotten any of that, who knows if I would be where I am today. So any criticism I gave the girls, it honestly came from a place of sisterhood and wanting them to succeed. Constructive criticism.
Yeah, coaching. Essentially coaching.
Exactly.
We can watch America's Next Top Model. It debuts Monday, December 12th, 10 p.m. at VH1. I'm a fan of the show. I'm glad it's back. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Graham. Appreciate it. All right, may not have the longevity of Ohio State and Michigan, but for a few years in the late 1980s, Notre Dame and the University of Miami had one of the country's fiercest rivalries. A new 30 for 30 documentary from ESPN relives the intensity of those games. It's called Catholics versus Convicts. And yesterday, I spoke with a man at the center of it all, former Miami quarterback Steve Walsh. Well, it's not the U Part 3, but Catholics versus Convicts showcases the rivalry between the Miami Hurricanes and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Steve, we see in the film that for the Irish, this rivalry really started in 1985 when Miami ran up the score on Notre Dame in Jerry Faust's final game as the head coach of the Irish. Did Notre Dame take this one a little too personally, Steve?
Well, you look back and all the thumpings that Notre Dame put on different people over their many years of great tradition in football, and I think just have it put it back on them, I think was a little bit bitter. And I actually was on that team, and the reality was we were going to run our offense. We had great athletes, and we just had we had better athletes than them at the time. But that certainly lit it off, obviously, with Jerry Faust and his regime kind of coming to an end. And that was certainly the cherry on top, and it certainly started the rivalry.
All right, so the film culminates with the game in 1988, where a failed two-point conversion cost Miami the game. What were the immediate and the long-term ripple effects from that one game?
Well, I think obviously that victory, was the launching point for Notre Dame. That rest of that season, they went on undefeated and won their national championship. Ironically, it was the last national championship they had won, to date. But I think that game, featured, great athletes on both sides of the field, both teams. And, I think the ripple effect was that the rivalry was coming to a very pointed end. I think they ended up playing two more times, and then they called it off for a while. But that certainly was, a lot. There's a lot of storylines behind that game.
Of course, a Notre Dame student was the brainchild behind the T-shirt, which coined the phrase Catholics versus Convicts. Obviously, the Convicts were you and your fellow Hurricane teammates. Not you specifically, but the Hurricanes in general. What impact did that T-shirt have?
Well, first of all, I'm a Catholic from St. Paul, Minnesota, so I wasn't quite sure who they were talking about. So, but honestly, we had come out of an '86 season where we had a lot of off-field problems at Miami, and then we go out to the Fiesta Bowl and lose to Penn State, come back and win a national championship, and really the program had really turned. We had great student athletes, and but we still had this kind of thug mentality. I guess that would really be the beginning of the swagger of the U. And when we saw that T-shirt, or we heard about the T-shirt, that was just another thing to get us fired up. So it wasn't anything that we took personal, because it was just something that, hey, it's us against the world type of mentality.
Steve, we see a moment in the film where a Notre Dame player is retelling a story about how Lou Holtz is giving his team this big rah-rah pep speech, before that game in '88. And he said, listen, you want to fight these guys after the game, you fight them in the parking lot, but you save Jimmy Johnson for me. When you watched that for the first time, what went through your mind?
Well, Jimmy loved the fight game, and we used to bring, heavyweight champs and, the middleweight champs out, Evander Holyfield and things like that out to our practice. So I'm sure Jimmy had a few combination punches. I think Holtz would have bitten off a little bit too much, but it's funny because these relationships that coaches have, and the great fraternity that coaches have, that there's relationships that cross paths in so many ways.
Steve Walsh, national champion quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes. Pleasure to talk with you, Steve, and congrats being part of this new 30 for 30 Catholics versus Convicts. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, thank you so much.
What a rivalry. You can watch the film tomorrow night following the Hesiman ceremony on ESPN. But college football is just the beginning this weekend. Super Bowl champion Chris Canty and Ryan Aselta, well, you heard what they had to say. But of course, there's so much more happening this weekend. Here's a look at what's on tap. This is SI Now's Weekend Drive presented by Toyota. Let's go places. First, we'll head to Baltimore for a rivalry that has run for 126 years, the legendary Army-Navy football game. This tradition dates back to 1890, with Navy leading the all-time series, including winning the last 14 straight. Army senior running back Joe Walker knows that this is his last shot at beating the midshipmen.
It's an unreal feeling. It got up on me a lot faster than I expected, but it's just really exciting. One last opportunity to get it done. And it feels good. It's very bittersweet, because you come to the end of the road at West Point, but at the same time, you're going to miss football, missing this opportunity.
The game kicks off at 3 p.m. Eastern. Next, some NFL action as we head to Indianapolis, where the Colts and Texans meet to battle for first place in the AFC South. Colts quarterback Andrew Luck has thrown for 7 touchdowns in his last 3 games, but understands just how stingy Houston's defense can be.
We know how big of a test this Houston game is. We know how stingy of a defense. I think they're top 5 maybe in the league. One against the run. I know at least in the last four weeks, playing really, really good football. So we'll have our hands full, and we're excited as well.
The Texans defense is only allowing 208 passing yards per game, good for 5th best in the league. Lastly, we take you to an NFC East matchup between the Cowboys and the Giants. Dallas has already locked up its playoff berth, but for Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott, this is his chance at redemption against the only team that's beaten him this season.
I'm looking forward to a lot. Personally, and then I know this team. They're the only blemish on our record right now. And just to be able to go up there at their place to do what they did us first game, we're excited for the opportunity.
Prescott only needs 26 more passing yards to reach 3,000 on the season. He will be the first rookie quarterback to reach this mark in Cowboys franchise history. And that's what's in store for this weekend. Saturday night in New York City, the Heisman Trophy will be awarded to one of the 5 finalists. Need a refresher of who those college athletes are? Well, here they are, the very talented group: Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, of course, the Oklahoma teammates of Baker Mayfield and DeDe Westbrook, and then Jabril Peppers of Michigan. Let's talk more about the Heisman with a man who won the award in 1995, then went on to play 9 years in the NFL and was a Pro Bowler. Eddit George is here on behalf of Wendy's High School Heisman, a great award, which we'll get to in just a moment. But Eddie, you take a look at that list. It's really impressive. No running backs on that list. Are you disappointed by that?
Of course. I'm a running back. Derrick Henry won it last year. He's a running back from Alabama. But listen, all these guys that are up for this award, the finalists from Lamar Jackson and so forth, are all deserving of it. Not everybody can win it, but all of them had fantastic years. This year, the year of the running back, it was hard to really find one guy that could stand out head and shoulders above everybody else. It seems like you have to rush for almost 3,000 yards now just to get considered for it. But
well, we thought Leonard Fournette was going to be the guy last year. Was not a finalist. He made it to New York. This year, he was injured, didn't play a lot of games.
Banged up,
Was it disappointing, I guess, Leonard's college career?
Well, no. I mean, Leonard, is a fantastic talent. And unfortunately, he got injured a little bit, and that's the nature of the game. But I felt like Dante Foreman, the running back out of Texas, who had 2000, so talented. He's declared for the NFL draft. I think he's going to be phenomenal. But certainly, Leonard is a fantastic talent. He's a generational back. Reminds me a lot of Bo Jackson in the Auburn days, early in his prime, able to hit the home run and run you over with just nasty, stiff arms. Everything about him is reeks of power and raw speed. It's just awesome to watch him play.
Do you think that he's going to translate the easiest into the NFL? You also have Christian McCaffrey, of course. You just mentioned Texas running back.
I'll tell you, if he runs behind the offensive line like Dallas has,
right.
yeah,
you get
it would
jealous
be a nice, easy. If he goes to Cleveland, it's a different story now.
Oh, no. If anyone goes to Cleveland.
Right.
That's really, really difficult. Well, of course, your Ohio State Buckeyes into the college football playoff. And, when you were playing, really, the Rose Bowl was the goal. That was the thing. Now we have the college football playoff, which is the #1, postseason event you can get to. Where does that leave the Rose Bowl?
Oh, the Rose Bowl is still very special. I mean, listen, it's a New Year's Day 6 bowl. It's played between the Big Ten champion and the Pac-12 champion. And certainly the Roses are amazing. I mean, Orange Bowl, Cotton Bowl, they're still historic bowls that you still relish going to because not everybody, again, can go to the 4-team playoffs. So the next consolation prize is getting to one of those spectacular bowls. In my opinion, the Rose Bowl is the best because it's the best venue in all of sports. Right. Not a bad seat in the house. You have the mountains in the back. It's scenic. It's very intimate. I mean, that's a special venue to go play in.
But you did say it's a consolation prize. As someone who was playing for that as the top achievement, is a little strange to even call it, the second option.
Well, here's the thing that it rotates. So it'll host one of the semifinal games or it'll host a national championship game. So every major bowl will have their opportunity to shine. So, but still, if you're Penn State, USC, there's no shame in being called the Rose Bowl champion, no doubt at all.
Well, we have made the Ohio State Buckeyes our adrenaline performers. It's presented by Toyota. Let's go places. Okay, they're going to have a very difficult matchup against Clemson. I'm not going to ask you who you think is going to win that game because that would be a waste of time. I know you're going to pick the Buckeyes.
I got you.
But let's fast forward this a moment. If the Buckeyes win, if they face who we believe Alabama will be in the national championship game, is Urban Meyer really the only coach who can beat Nick Saban in a big game? It
certainly appears that way. Going back to when he played the coach at Florida. That he's had great success against Nick Saban. It's going to be interesting. I mean, this is the youngest team in the country by far. Coming into the season, they're well experienced now. And I don't know if they have enough firepower at the wide receiver position to outscore Alabama. They have the defense, they have the intangibles, they have the coaching, but when you get into a matchup like this, it's like fine hairs. I mean, it's the nuances now you have to look to see where they have the edge. So it's going to be interesting. But first of all, look, they got to get past Clemson. I mean, Clemson, Ohio State has never, zero wins against Clemson. So that's going to be the first hurdle that Ohio State has to get through. From the mental aspect. So it's going to be difficult.
And that's going to be a fun Fiesta Bowl for sure. Okay, so we talked about coaches. Speaking of which, got to ask about your former professional coach, Jeff Fisher. He's been under a little bit of fire lately. The back and forth between Eric Dickerson, the conference call with the Patriots. Have you spoken to him at all about any of this stuff? Is he feeling the heat a little bit?
I think he is feeling the heat a little bit, but I haven't had a chance to talk to Jeff about that specifically. I think he's more concerned with finding a way to win a ball game at this point in time. And I think winning heals everything.
But objectively, is the criticism warranted for your former Tennessee Titans coach?
He's been there, 7 years or so, has yet to have a winning record. You have to look at all the circumstances around it. I mean, they moved from St. Louis to L.A. this year. They traveled probably more than any other team in the NFL, and that brings on more challenges. Your team is tired. They're not quite as fresh. Could he have made some decisions earlier about the quarterback position, bringing Jared Goff?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think he can do that. But I think Jeff can still get it done. He has a great nucleus. The most important thing is that he still has to keep his team involved. They can't give up on him. If they give up on him, then you might have to part ways. But I think to a man, the players really respect Jeff Fisher. And I'm telling you, you just get a couple of wins under your belt it heals everything. Everybody wants to sing Kumbaya at that point in time. You start to get some wins under your belt.
Well, and the organization just extended him for 2 years, so they showed a little bit of faith in him. All right, we should talk about the Wendy's High School Heisman. It is the reason why you are here. They give out $10,000 of scholarship money to the best female and male high school scholar athlete in the country. How special are these kids that you get to meet?
Oh my God, they are so special. These kids are not only dynamic in their fields of play, but they're dynamic in the classroom, dynamic in the community. They don't know any other way but the hard, long way. They don't cut corners. And that's what's beautiful about the marriage between the Wendy's High School Heisman and the Heisman Trust. The core values are the same. So we have a chance to recognize these kids every single year. Since 1994, they've recognized 600,000 kids.
Wow.
And just to mention, I mean, there's one young lady who was an Olympic athlete that competed down in Rio this past year.
Amazing.
So they go on to do great things. You say in theater is a triple threat. You know, sing, act, and dance is the same thing for these kids. So they are the quintessential triple threat when it comes to being the all-around athlete.
We know it's so special, and what Wendy's has done with the high school Heisman, it's such a great event. Thank you for bringing the Heisman Trophy with you.
Can you strike the pose?
No, and the last time you brought it, I almost broke it. So I've been on strict instructions, Maggie, do not touch the trophy this year. Eddit George, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And good luck with the Wendy's High School Heisman. You guys will do that on Saturday night. Give out the award, that is. And that is going to do it for this Friday episode. We've made it all the way to the end of the week. We'll be back here on Monday when I'll be joined by Olympic gold medalist Aly Raceman, and we'll crown the fan-sided Fan of the Year in our studio. That will happen at 1 p.m. Eastern on Monday. But until then, stick with SI.com, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you Monday.